Welcome, Nikso, to the Wholesome Crypto Show. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
So, everyone knows you as the director of EthStaker and ETH community of just all good in staking. And we rely on you on a bunch of resources and your team and the community. But we want to know how Nikso got into this position, how you got into this community. And I'd love to know what were you first doing before you ever even heard about Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything crypto related?
Yeah, so before I ever heard about Bitcoin, I was in college, and I'm actually just going to start off with my whole crypto journey,
Go
which
for it.
was in college. I bought some LSD, and the instructions that the guy gave to me about how to take the LSD didn't sound right because LSD is bioavailable, so it shouldn't need any instructions. So I Googled, like, what maybe could this be? Because I don't want to take something that's not LSD. And I read that there were like derivatives going around where I lived.
Mm.
And so I figured it was one of those derivatives. So I was like, okay, well, then how do I get something that is like verifiably good? How do I need a test kit? Like, how do I safely take drugs? And
It's important.
yeah, it actually really is. I like Arrowhead was absolutely cherished resource for me at that time, because then you don't take too much of something and you know exactly what you're getting into, and you know what the reactions are going to be, and you know how
Mhm.
the variability of reactions between other people, like it should be. Lots of people experiment and very few people experiment safely. So yeah, I did a bunch of research on how I could find LSD safely, and going on Reddit, I found something about, like, oh, just buy it from Silk Road, and I was like, okay, what's this Silk Road thing? So I bought Bitcoin um, to buy LSD on Silk Road, and I remember the first time that I bought Bitcoin, I went to a miner's house. He had advertised on local Bitcoins, and I went to his house, and like I felt really sketchy about it,
That
but
is
the
sketchy.
place, yeah, the place I lived like wasn't a very sketchy area, and so I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna go to this guy's house. He lived in a tiny little apartment, but it was decked out with Bitcoin stuff, like just Bitcoin stuff everywhere. He had his little
Wow.
6-year-old daughter in there who was like sitting at the table coloring, and we sat down with our laptops and transferred Bitcoin to my wallet. And his 6-year-old daughter made like a little certificate in glitter pens that said, "Congratulations, you have 100 Bitcoin." And I was like,
Aw.
cool. Now that's a painful first certificate for me.
Here's a
um,
reminder of what you could have been.
yeah, especially because the guy was like, I mean, he was super wholesome. He was sitting there, he was like, look, you're doing a really good thing for yourself. You're setting yourself up for life. This is going to be like a turning point in your life. I'm so glad that I'm able to sell you this Bitcoin. And I was like,
Wow.
you're a crazy person.
He was right the
So
whole time.
he was right the whole time, and he was like being so wholesome about it, and he wanted to show me things. He showed me his little Castaceous coin. And I
Oh,
was
wow.
just a college kid who was like, you know, I'm buying drugs with this, right? Like, that's how I got into crypto. I actually ended up taking what I had left, and I donated it to Arrowhead, because Arrowhead at some point announced that they were accepting crypto donations. And so I was like, oh, I think I have a few left in my Mt. Gox account. So I donated like part of that to Arrowhead and left the rest of it in my Mt. Gox account.
Could you tell our viewers what
Um,
Arrowhead is?
Arrowhead is a like a crowd funded or a crowd sourced drug education website. So it's basically like a more informal Wikipedia where you can, it has like a page for every drug, and it talks about the chemistry of it, how it's made. It, like, people submit like what their reactions were to it, what doses they took, where they got it, what it looked like, just
Mm.
something so somebody can go in informed on what they're taking. They're a super great resource. I think they might be a nonprofit. I'm not sure. I don't even actually know where they're based. I was just like, I have used this resource a lot
They're
here, so
helpful.
yeah, here's some Bitcoins worth $10. um, so I ignored crypto for a while. Mt. Gox blew up, and I heard that news, but I knew I had like a couple bucks in there, so it didn't really matter to me. And I didn't even remember the account that I was using because it was a Tor mail account.
Mhm.
The email that I was using was a Tormail account. When Bitcoin hit, I think it was $1,000. My friend messaged me and like showed me a screenshot and was like, "Hey, like Bitcoin just hit $1,000. Isn't that the thing that you bought?" And I was like, "Whoa, what am I
Most
doing?"
expensive.
Yeah,
Oh
most
man.
expensive LSD ever. So, because I think I bought it at like $6 a pop or something like that. But so I was like, okay, I'm not gonna mess this up again. I need to go figure out what the next thing to buy is. So I went on to look for a new exchange, and I found a sketchy Russian exchange called BTC-E.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Put
I've
some,
seen them.
yeah, put some money on it, and bought whatever was on there. I did zero research. I was just like, cool, whatever this is, I'm going to buy some. I think I bought like 2 or 3 coins. And then I left it alone. 6 months later, I come back and I'm like, I wonder how my cryptocurrency is doing. And it was doing really badly. And so I was like, you know what? I better do some research about what I bought. Turns out I had bought Russian rubles.
That's it.
Um,
Yeah. Not even any real coins.
I didn't even buy a cryptocurrency. I bought fiat currency, just Russian fiat.
Yeah.
And then I bought some Litecoin after that because that was really the only other serious like thing in the
Yeah.
space besides Bitcoin at that point. There were a couple of things, but ICOs hadn't happened yet. And
Hmm.
so I bought that, and then I completely missed ETH launching. And then once it did launch, I went and bought some more on BTCE. And then I still have never had a self-custody wallet at this point. And BTCE rugs. And
My heart is hurting for you.
yeah, so that's the second exchange that had rugged at this point. So I was like, oh, I need to figure out the self-custodied wallet thing. But very shortly afterwards, Bitcoin E came back, and it said, if you leave your money in our exchange, you can have, like, you'll start vesting what your balance was. But if you take it out, you only get like, I think it was like 40% of your balance. And I was like, what could go wrong? I'm gonna leave it in here. So I left it in there, and it rugged again. Um,
uh,
yeah, yeah,
I learned my
it's
lessons too.
gone
It's
great.
okay. This is not a judgment. This is an OG story of learning your lessons. So please
Yeah,
teach
you
us.
got it. Yeah, like I learned my lessons early. Like I'm hopefully mostly done learning these like very idiotic move lessons. Hopefully, um, everybody's got to go through it. It's like hazing.
I feel like, yeah,
Hopefully, it'll
it's like,
happen less and less.
I feel like that's like a little bit of NFT. I learned a little bit during the NFT craze. Like I'll buy one or two like small time NFTs and they're worth nothing now. So it's like, all right, that's what my lesson was. Like I know that it can go really bad really quickly. So I'm just going to invest like maybe $100 into it and that's it. Like gambling at a casino type of stuff.
Yeah. So I bought some ETH, and then at that point, I was sort of watching it, and I was doing a little bit of research, and I stopped paying attention for a little while. The ICO craze happened. Of course, I started paying attention as it was like veering into the bull market because now I have Ethereum, and I'm trying to figure out like trying to get my bearings. But at this point, I was in graduate school, and I was paying a lot of attention to my studies. And there was like a 3 week period, I think in like 2017, 2018, where I was like, I'm a trader. And I traded, and it was like, after 3 weeks, I was like, I am not a trader. I hate this.
That's how I feel.
It's so stressful. I remember sitting there during a lab meeting one time, and we're all like going over our current results and sharing with each other, and I'm sitting there with charts open, like trying to sell at the right time, and my advisor is like, what are you doing? And I was like, hold
I'm gonna
on.
get rich. Let me just do this. I mean, that's for me too. I like 2017. I was like, oh, I'm gonna trade and make a bunch of money, like all the other people do. And yeah, it's worse. Every time I trade, it's a loss. It's a net loss for me. And I was like, all right, I'm done trading. I'm just going to buy whenever I can and hold. And I don't care what happens in the market anymore. This is time to refocus my mind into like, oh, this is investing for the technology of the future, not for fiat dollars.
Yeah, and even when you do win, even when you're up, like when I'm up, I just feel this anxiety about like, okay, now I'm up. I have to stay up. I cannot go back into like being down. And I never even traded with leverage or anything like that. Like that,
Yeah.
I can't imagine the amount of anxiety that comes with that.
I don't know how people do it, but it's a numbers game to some people.
Yeah, for sure. Like everybody else during the 2018 to 2020 bear market, I completely dropped out. I missed all of DeFi summer. I came back as the bear market or as the bull market out of DeFi summer was coming back because my dad kept texting me and was like, yo, you know that ETH we bought in 2017, 2018, can you sell it? And I was like, no, this is a bad time for that.
This is
But then as he like was texting me, which is always my sign of like whatever he's asking me to do, it's the wrong time to do it. Which is funny because my mom is the exact opposite. My mom has like a really good intuition for when to buy and sell. So my dad is texting me on one side like, "Hey, can you sell ETH?" And my mom is texting me on the other side like, "Here's $200. Can you buy some ETH?" I'm like,
listen to mom.
yeah. So then I started looking back into it. I went looking for the ETH Trader subreddit. And I was like, where did the ETH Trader subreddit go? Like, well, why is this dead? Where is the daily? Followed it over to ETH Finance. I also missed all of that drama. And I started seeing a lot of stuff about staking. And I kept seeing this magical number 32. And I was like, what is this? I want to know what this is. So I asked a lot of questions. I did my own deposit, and it was right after Genesis. I think this will forever be something that I feel terrible. I hate myself for, but I deposited like 2 months after Genesis, and so I'll never have that POAP.
It's all right. Maybe
And
maybe someone
then
else could get it for you,
yeah,
steal it from you,
I'll just buy it off of OpenSea.
buy.
Um, that would feel so wrong. That would feel so wrong.
No.
When you do something like that, when you set up a validator, I feel like it's such a technical endeavor, and I'm not like a super technical person. I don't know how to program. The most technical that I ever was like when I went to college, when I went to undergrad, my dad bought me a laptop, and I did not want a Windows laptop, and so he was like, you know what, it's fine. Let's put Linux on it, and I was like, okay. So he set me up with an Ubuntu laptop, and I spent all of college sitting there in class with people going, "Oh, I didn't know you code," and I was like, "I just am trying to get this program to work."
I don't go. I don't want to, but I have to.
Yeah, I don't code at all. I'm just copying and pasting things off the internet, trying to get
That's
Microsoft
coding.
Word to
You
work.
did it. It's exactly what coding
Yeah,
is nowadays.
yeah. So I feel like my dad's decision to give me an Ubuntu computer, and like we had Linux computers as I was growing up, because he had like, I remember when we were growing up, our family computer, when I don't remember how old, it had Red Hat on it.
Hmm.
And our family computer when I was really little, like 10 or 11, it wasn't actually even a family computer. It was a computer. It was an old computer in the garage that my dad had not thrown away and that I had figured out how to turn on. And it had MS-DOS like 3.2 on it. And so I think
Oh
that's
wow.
all command line. And so I remember like creating little text documents with it and trying to like find it afterwards. Um, and so like my dad's in IT. This is what he does. Like a
Yeah.
little bit of it rubbed off on me just enough to make me, when staking came around, I was like, I feel like I could figure this out. So all in all, like when that all finished, when I had set up a validator, I was very proud of myself. And so I continued going to the EthStaker subreddit, especially because the EthStaker motto is welcoming first, knowledgeable second, which means that anybody who comes in there with a question doesn't get the typical computer science response, which is, man, you're an idiot. Like, just do it this way. I cannot believe you didn't like figure that out by yourself. Like the computer science and tech bro, not even tech bro, the computer science and tech nerd scene is sometimes so hostile towards newcomers. And the EthStaker subreddit was exactly the opposite of that. And so I really liked that. And so I kept going there and answering other people's questions until at some point Superfizz messaged me and was like, "Hey, I love that you're answering everybody's questions here. Do you want to be a moderator here?" And I was like, "Hell yes, I want to be a moderator." And I was so stoked. I was so stoked that Superfizz messaged me back after a few days and was like, "Are you? I don't know if like you're this isn't a moderator position for eFinance. This is a moderator position for EthStaker." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I'm stoked." And he was like, "Okay, that's fine. Why not?" Yeah, so I moderated there for a little while. I think that I moderated there for like half a year to a year before my job in environmental science became untenable because of COVID. I worked for a program that was a joint program between federal government and state government, and the federal government and state government could not agree on what their COVID protocols were. Yeah. And a large part of my job was these periods of time where we would work 80 hours a week. And we could not do those periods of time because the government could not agree on its COVID protocol. And so I lost out on a lot of wages, and my salary ended up going down like almost 20% for like 2.5 years. And just as a result of missing those wages. And I couldn't afford to live where I was living anymore. Like the place that I was is one of the most expensive places in the US. I told them like, we had these in-house programs, and I told them, you know what? We need these in-house programs updated. They're written in Visual Basic. They only work on Windows 7 computers. And the guy who wrote them is like 90 years old now and is not going to rewrite our programs, and they need to be rewritten in something like Python. So how about this job pays for me, like, because they wouldn't hire a programmer for some reason. We kept telling them, like, we need a programmer. We need someone to, like, translate these things. And they were like, oh, we can't afford another person. So I was like, you know what? Why don't you pay for me to go to this coding boot camp, and I will figure it out. These are relatively simple programs. I will figure out how to translate these. And my boss was like, and I like came up with this whole proposal. I found the coding boot camp I wanted to go to. I showed him the amount that it was going to cost. I said, I will cover a portion of this. And my boss just was like, nah, that's not happening. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go to this coding boot camp. So I quit.
Good for you. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it worked out really well because all of my whole team and I were getting fed up with all of this. And so we sort of three of us quit at the same time, and in all citing the same management issues, the same reasons for quitting. And then I put it out there that I was now jobless and going to a coding boot camp, and Colfax from EthStaker reached out to me and was like, I am starting a company. Do you want to come work for me? It's a crypto company. And I leapt on it. I was like, yes, absolutely. Yes. Anything that gets my foot into the door in the crypto world.
Hell yeah. Colfax is awesome too, yeah.
Yeah, Colfax also is part of EthStaker.
Yeah, I met Colfax and he was on this show too when he was doing GitPoApp. And that was a lot of fun learning about him. Such a crazy story too. Him. Sure. He's like chef and like also coder, but also does crypto. And then I'm like, you have a lot of skills. It's pretty impressive.
I love, one of my favorite things about crypto is that people come from like vastly different industries. Mm-hmm. And we're only seeing it just now where people like graduate in marketing and then they try to get a job in crypto marketing, and they like go sort of the traditional route of like trying to build their resume up into like a traditional looking job. But even like 2, 3 years ago, and like largely still now, it's people who are just like, I was a ER doctor and I just was really into Ethereum, so I quit my job and decided to find my way into crypto. Like that was Paul Rackrell from Ethereum.org story. He was a doctor.
What's what's nuts too is like now I'm going to like blockchain events in the Boston area, and I'm meeting college students or younger kids who are doing an internship at crypto companies, but they seem bored. They're like, oh yeah, I'm just, it's like becoming so almost normalized. Like, oh yeah, working in crypto. I'm like, working in crypto? Do you not understand what you're doing? Like, I just want to shake the kid. Like, you're doing an amazing, awesome thing. Like being in a crypto, any crypto company, like trying to change the way we behave as a society well, in technology sense. And
I guess it,
it's good that
yeah,
it's becoming normalized, but also, ah, you don't
yeah,
understand.
yeah. It's gonna be more and more like that as time goes on. This is gonna like I'm reading well, I read a really good book that was recommended to me by Trent Van Epps. It's called The Master Switch. It's
Ooh,
super good. I recommend everybody read it. It's about information empires, and it just talks about how like every new industry that comes up starts as like this like weird hobbyist thing that happens out of people's garages, and like the industry that it sort of will disrupt is like, you know, nothing, like we big fancy suits know what we're doing, stay out of this. And then once it becomes apparent that it's going to be the future, the big fancy industry finds a way, or at least tries to find a way, to swoop in and steal it. And then
mm-hmm.
that industry, that new burgeoning industry, it becomes the baddies.
It's kind of happened with, yeah.
It's going to happen with crypto. Like it's definitely going to happen. Crypto is going to become so normalized. It's going to be like working at Google, because working at Google at some point during the early 2000s was also like, oh, you're working for this new weird startup thing, like because you're
So cool.
weird and yeah, nerdy and edgy, and like, are you sure that's going to work out? Are you sure you don't want to work for a more traditional company with more stability? And now it's the baddies.
Yeah. And that's like, I mean, it's sort of happening a little bit in crypto. It's like a flavor of that when you're like working for, I guess, an L1 that's not representing crypto in its finest. I'm like, oh, you're working for that chain? Like, oh,
Yeah.
why? But it's like hard not to, it's like kind of happened with Bitcoiners and like Ether, I guess some ETH maxis, and then it's going to Solana, and then it's like Cardano. It's like everyone's getting hit by this like debate, and I'm like, I mean, everyone has a point in their own context, but it's hard to have a consensus of the overall mission of crypto, which I feel like was really apparent back in the day, like 2013, when there was like
Yeah,
Bitcoin as
for
the
sure.
main actor, where everyone's saying, yeah, Bitcoin is going to change the future, and crypto as a whole is going to change the future. And no one was like shitting on Litecoin for existing. They're just like, oh, it's a different flavor. It's cool, whatever. But you know,
There was
now
lots of
it's
shitting on Litecoin.
there was, but it's not like it's not as bad as today. I feel like it's so ruthless now, and it's because it's much more lucrative.
Yeah, and I guess that's what happens when there are actual like Litecoin was never going to displace Bitcoin, and everybody knew it. It was like a hope that it would come up, whereas like there are actual contenders now, and I mean, in large part, like Ethereum has already displaced Bitcoin as sort of like the new tech, and so that's what everybody's building on. Whenever somebody says that are they even hold Bitcoin, I like, my standard response to that is, "Oh, are you building on Bitcoin?" Because no one ever is.
Yeah, so for the Wizards,
um,
which I'm kind of happy for, but we'll see how that turns out.
yeah, I need to like, I mean, I say I need to, but I really don't have the energy. But I
It's a
kind of
lot.
wish that I was a little bit, yeah, more knowledgeable about what was happening in other blockchains, because if Ethereum ever becomes like the one that's not relevant anymore, I want to know.
Quickly.
Quickly.
But now it's becoming another like, war between different chains and whose chain's bigger, and just figuring out if is it going to be one chain to rule it all, or are we going to be able to live in a society where there's multiple chains that can live cohesively together or not?
Yeah, and like I have told several people who like that there are people who are paying attention to Solana for some reason, and I've told them like, hey, if you ever actually see anything that's like really interesting that's going on over there, and it's not just narrative about like who's winning and like who's going to get who's going to be more scalable and who's going to be cheaper, like if there's actually anything exciting happening over there, like let me know, because at this point I have muted Solana. Like I don't want to hear anything about Solana. I am solely focused on Ethereum staking and educating Ethereum stakers. And it used to be the case like back in 2017, 2018, that when I would Google stuff about Ethereum, I could pretty much catch up on the entire space in one day. And like
Mm-hmm.
I could, they had the, do you remember the little charts that were in 2017, 2018? It was like the Ethereum ecosystem, and they like had every single project that was building on Ethereum in that thing. And like a lot of them were dead projects, but it was just like people trying to convince you like stuff is happening.
I don't remember the chart, but I do remember, yeah, like everyone's showing. I think we have some of those now, but yeah, how many projects are being built on Ethereum, and it is pretty nuts now. I can't keep up. I need other people to help me out with this one because it's too much. It's a good thing, but it's too damn much.
Yeah,
But keep it going,
I
guys.
can
Keep building.
hardly. Yeah, and I've actually even so at some point I had to narrow my scope, and I was like, look, pay attention to staking stuff. Like I am not going to pay attention to whatever's happening in the L2 space. I just don't have the bandwidth for that. And lately, it's kind of felt like, you know what? I am paying attention to solo staking stuff, because people will come to me and they'll be like, "Oh, you run EthStaker, like, so what do you think of this new liquid staking protocol?" And I'm like, not only have I never even heard of that thing, but like that's also not my main thing, because my main thing is to support solo stakers. And like, yes, maybe that might be like semi decentralizing for the space, because they come in, they take market share from Lido and Coinbase and whoever else is like cornering the market on people who are staking 1 or 2 ETH. But like the thing that I want to do is create new node operators, and
Hmm.
liquid staking protocols don't necessarily do that. So I even had to narrow my scope within staking recently, and I'm sure that like there'll be a point where I have to narrow my scope further,
It's
and that
natural.
just means that we're doing great.
That's why you have like that. I guess everyone is a subject matter expert in that field, so you have that solo staking taken care of to what it is now, and then I'm sure you have a big team of people who are more focused on liquid staking and L2s, and then just Rocket Pool, just stake wise, just Diva, and then it just it's just interesting to see on how big and how many spots are available for people to like work in this industry, and how important it is to be specialized, especially now, because you can't be a specialist in Ethereum. It's too big now, and you can't be a specialist in Bitcoin itself either, because that's pretty big too. But people like to claim to be, and that's when the experts come in and start shooting, you know, holes in the narratives of like, no, it's not just like that. It's a lot bigger of a context.
I think it's really funny. Like, being in crypto has sort of made me distrust large newspapers, because when I worked in environmental science, I like rarely saw something in my industry quoted in a newspaper or something like that. But when I did, it was someone halfway across the country that like I had no interaction with, that I was like, yeah, that name sounds familiar. That's probably a good source. But now that I'm in crypto and it's like a hot topic to cover, sometimes I'll see the Wall Street Journal or like Forbes quote someone, and I'm like, you are quoting a crypto Twitter influencer who knows nothing. Like, where are you finding these sources? And like, if that's your person that you quoted, how wrong is the rest of the stuff in this article?
It's all about pushing their own agenda. It's what most people do, right? It's a natural human instinct to push your own agenda, and you find whatever biases agree with you or help your cause, which is sad. It's just not an open-minded way to collaborate and think and produce.
Yeah, and it's also just like it's a representation of the main character thing that we have going on in crypto Twitter, and I think in the larger financial space in general, where we love to like worship someone who seems like they know what's going on. Because
Hmm.
most people, not most people, like 99.999% of people have no idea what they're doing. And we're looking for one person who like has vision, who knows what they're doing, who just like has a handle on exactly what they want to see come out of the world and how to accomplish that. And there are people who just have honed into that desire, and their arrogance just allows them to fill that hole for people even though they're clearly not that person. Like,
Hmm.
I think that anybody who was familiar, anybody who was like smart and not desperate in crypto Twitter, like watching what's going on, like knew that Do Kwon was full of shit and knew that he was like he didn't actually know, he just had a lot of arrogance. And I think that I wish I knew how to make like reporters and crypto Twitter and the larger ecosystem give more voice and give more credence to
Hmm.
wholesome people, people who know what they're doing and maybe aren't so loud, and like that not being loud thing is a problem because
It's hard.
the less you say, the less people have to like glom onto. So people who sit on crypto Twitter literally 24 hours a day just sitting there tweeting, not building anything, are the people who end up getting listened to.
And that's like when I was at the presidential forum that Coinbase and Stand with Crypto hosted. It was interesting hearing these politicians speak because deep down, I'm like, have you ever done anything on Ethereum or Bitcoin? You might have bought, you probably have some actual crypto in your portfolio, but like, have you built anything on it? Have you tried to like really read any documentation on Ethereum? Have you like talked to any of the builders in the space? The answer is probably no, but it's like you said, it's too much for one person to bear a full understanding of the space. The one thing I did appreciate is they understand that it's a technological revolution and innovation that needs to be brought into America. That's what they said. I hope it's true. And I guess having that and hopefully them appointing someone who is an expert and is an innovator in that space can help bring that into today's policies. I mean, that's why I'm so happy for Coinbase because they are pushing that agenda. They are really pushing that in political sense of we need crypto to be in America. But yeah, it is tough because we never. I think that's like the whole point of crypto, right? Is like stop trying to trust and verify. So we live in a society of a lot of trust, and I think our trust has been broken way too many times, and now we're like, all right, I don't want to trust anybody. Just verify it.
Mm-hmm. And like that's what the system is supposed to enable. I hope that that's where we go because historically, new technology like this gets sort of shoved into a trusted entity, and then they say, "Oh, we're using this and we're using it to make the world better," and then we just revert to like trusting the trusted entity, the trusting the new trusted entity. Like
Yeah.
I I I I love what Coinbase is doing. I'm so stoked about them, but I think that we always need to approach them with the same skepticism that we've always approached, not always, that we have in the past few years approached any centralized entity, because any centralized entity is the thing that created this whole problem in the first place, is that centralized system. And a company's ethos really comes from like people at the top. People at the
Mhm.
top set the tone of the company, and I think Brian Armstrong is setting a really strong tone. I think that he should stop venturing into politics on Twitter because I think it kind of destroys part of what he's building. As long as he's at the helm, I think that Coinbase will be great. But there could be a time, there likely will be a time when Coinbase becomes such a powerful entity that, and there's like so much bureaucracy in it that he sort of loses his footing. I'm Tim, not Tim, what's his face? Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs at
Mhm.
Apple was pushed out, and that was like his
Yep.
company. I mean, he pushed out Steve Wozniak to begin with, and so there can be a shift in culture that you don't even notice, and that brand is still trusted, And so you continue to trust that brand even though it no longer deserves it. And so I think that we always need to come at Coinbase with the same skepticism that we come at any centralized entity with. I actually wanted to ask you, I saw that picture. What was the event that you went to?
So Stand with Crypto hosted a presidential forum in New Hampshire, and Coinbase, I think, also supported Stand with Crypto. And they had three political leaders or politicians, Asa Hutchinson, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Dean Phillips. And they just each gave their little talk and had a little moderation question and answer with, I guess, in front of the crowd. And then, yeah, that was fun. I mean, it was interesting hearing them it was mostly about crypto. It wasn't like every other topic, which I'm sure there's a lot of things we can point at in a politician. But I was just, yeah, curious to hear what they had to say. And the Boston DAO community all like went there too. So being part of Boston DAO was
Nice.
fun event.
I'm I'm always like I wanted my uncle had a dinner like a couple years ago where a House representative from Texas was going there, and I went because I really wanted to ask it. He like is this House representative is a voice in crypto regulation, and I really wanted to ask him, like, I kind of just wanted to suss out what he knew about crypto. I know what his stance is, but I wanted to talk to him face to face to ask him a couple of questions to figure out, like, do you actually know anything about crypto? Um, and like his whole thing is that he's against stable coins or not stable coins, CBDCs, which is
Mhm.
a totally fine, and like I support that stance. But like if you're talking about crypto at all, I'm curious how many of those representatives fundamentally understand what crypto is. And so it sounds like a really cool event to go to be able to like talk to them face to face and sort of get a sense of like,
Yeah,
what do you understand about crypto?
it was the first one too, so I hope they have more. But yeah, that's what I was saying. It's really interesting to see what they really know. And my thing is like, I don't think they know the extent of URI, and I'm not saying that we know a ton either. But it's just that hard to like know so much just because of how big the space is. And I hope they have people who are guiding them well in their decision making or advising them well.
Yeah, that's I mean that's all you can hope, right? Like I really wish that politics was more of like I am just an organizer. It does not matter what my views on something are. What I do is I figure out what the views of my constituents are, and then I assemble a panel of experts who decide the best way to affect the change that you, my constituents, want to see. But that's not how end up things working. That's not how things
That
end up working. Everything is so partisan nowadays.
that'd be so great if other leaders were saying, "Oh, I'm just a person, but I have a great team, and let me tell you about each of my team members." Like, yeah, that's I'd vote for you. Then like makes sense. You're not taking all the credit. You have a team who's actually helpful. That makes sense.
But that would require that people based their hiring and their cabinet on um, ability rather than politics. And what actually happens is
Uh,
they're do political favors for people, and people end up being the head of the Department of Education, even though they have no idea what they're doing.
slowly but surely we'll figure it out. I really hope so. But now that so again, like you're in this crypto world, you're living it, you're breathing it, you're working in it. A lot of mental capacity goes into it. What does Nixo do for getting out of crypto? Maybe just to take a break, meditate.
I
I don't
am
know,
so
do some running. What
I am
is it?
so addicted to crypto. I cannot stop thinking about crypto. I sometimes think about the fact that like this might be the workaholic stage of my life, because I have spent time with friends. I'm a crypto nomad right now, which means that I get to travel a lot and I get to visit people, and um, I find it actually kind of problematic visiting people because they're like, oh, okay, cool, you can come to my house and work. Um, and then after work we'll go out and do this fun thing, or like it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, do you actually want to go do this and this and this? And I'm like, do you I have a job to do. And like some of my friends work like actual like clock in, clock out jobs, and I was staying with one of them in Argentina last year, and at 5 o'clock she would be like, "Okay, what do you want to do tonight?" And I would be like, "I,
It's my
I
busiest
could,
time.
I could still have a lot to do." But I try my best to be healthy. I have found that no matter where you are, there is going to be something to do, but you have to figure out. Part of the nomad thing is you have to figure out what the most appropriate thing to be doing to keep yourself healthy is. So like it
Mhm.
changes everywhere you go. When I was in California, I was playing roller derby. When I
Cool.
was in the South, I did a little bit of jujitsu. Here, I'm doing a bunch of yoga. And so it I guess the thing is like find the thing that works for you. And right now, the thing that's working for me is yoga, and it's probably not going to work very long because I get bored. And but then I'll be out of this place by then, and I'll find a new thing.
That's fun. And it's good that you're finding the whatever is, like you said, like whatever is healthy for you in the spot at the moment, because it does keep that sense of uh, new happening. You're not, I mean, I guess practice is good, repetition is good, but also keeping things flowing, keeping your mind active, and keeping yourself feeling present. Is one of the things I loved about traveling is every time I go somewhere else, it's a new feeling. Even though I'm going to a grocery store in this country, a grocery store in that country, the grocery store vibe is completely different. I have to figure out how it works. Like even in Europe, I'm like, oh, I have to measure out my own fruits and vegetables in a bag and put it on the scale and then bring it to the register up front. I don't just bring everything up to register like we do in the States, which was funny.
Yeah, I had to explain to someone a couple of months ago. They were telling me, "Oh, just go to the grocery store and get this thing," and I was like, can you show me?" And he was like, "What do you mean? Can I show you? Can you just go to the grocery store and do it?" And I was like, "Look, I go into the grocery store in a foreign country. I don't know what any of the labels say. I don't know what are good brands or what are bad brands. I don't even know like what store brands look like. I don't know what's going to be available at grocery stores. I don't know like if this is a normal type of grocery store or if there are bigger grocery stores like further away that I should be going to if I want the cool stuff. I don't know what section peanut butter is in because no
That's
country
so hard to
except for the
find.
US. It's so hard. And I love
I'm like,
peanut
why is
butter.
this? Me too. It's like the hardest thing to find. Like, why is this so hard? Is this peanut butter? Is this, maybe not. I don't know, but
It
I
is not
guess
with
we'll
the
take it.
jams in most countries.
But traveling and experiencing different parts of like cultures and do you go to like blockchain meetups around the area that you're staying at or try to?
You know, I don't. I there were a couple of times that I've gone to blockchain meetups. My very first blockchain meetup was like a Bitcoin meetup in 20 like early crypto, and I it set like a bad tone for blockchain meetups for me because everybody was sort of
Hmm.
sitting there like, "Do you know how to make money? Do you know how to make money?" Like, and it felt very much like one of those like mom hosts a Tupperware party because like it felt like a little scammy, like
Yeah.
just everybody trying to figure out how to join the MLM scheme in time. Um, and then as blockchain has sort of matured a little bit, it's still a lot of the people who attend the meetups are people who are trying to figure out how to get involved. And I maybe like not even necessarily. There's just so many people trying to get rich at these meetups. And even though all I want to do is talk about crypto, I find that the crypto people that I get along with best are the people that I'm already friends with online. Um, and
Yeah.
so I have not like here in Barcelona, I haven't gone to any blockchain meetups, and I literally came to Barcelona because I was like, oh, there's a huge blockchain community there, and I have mostly been going to comedy shows while I'm here because there's a huge comedy show scene.
Oh, I
And
didn't know
I
that.
thought about it yesterday. I was like, I should probably look up a crypt like a blockchain meetup, and I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, I feel that because mean, sometimes it's a hit or miss. Sometimes it's a lot of people who are building and excited to talk about their project. But then there you get the people like, oh, what are you investing in? What's your portfolio look like? I'm like, I don't know. Like, why does that matter? Why are you asking me this? Just buy Ethereum and Bitcoin, and
I
that's
will,
fine enough.
yeah. I will say I did go to a bunch of blockchain meetups in Buenos Aires because they have a really strong crypto community, and they have a strong crypto community because they're experiencing hyperinflation. And like last time I went, I got connected to a guy who in Argentina there are two rates for money exchange. One is the bank rate, one
Mm-hmm.
is the blue dollar rate. The bank rate right now is like 350 pesos per dollar, but the real rate, the blue dollar rate, is like 900 pesos per dollar. So in order to get that conversion, you have to bring cash with you and like exchange cash for pesos. And you can do that like with Western Union, or you can just bring bills with you. So I already knew that. I brought a bunch of bills with me, and I called the contact that I got, and I said like, hey, can I give you some money? I need some pesos. And he was like, yeah, is there any way that you could use USDT? I can teach you how to use it. And I was like, wait, you take crypto? And he was like,
Let me teach
yeah.
you.
So I was like, that is, yeah, I was like, that is way better for me. I could definitely
Yeah.
do that.
Oh,
Um,
and for anyone who doesn't know, blue dollar is like the U.S. dollar with a blue strip, or looks blue because of the new ink. Because I don't think they trust the old ink so much. Is that right?
I didn't know that.
Oh, because I was about to go to
I
Argentina and I
had
was
no
talking to people
idea.
about that. Yeah, they want that blue because the $100 bill has a blue strip going down it, and that's the blue.
Oh, that's where that
Yeah.
comes from.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to
The
know.
more you
Yeah.
know in wholesome crypto.
um, yeah, they're like it's not just an Ethereum community down there. They have a really big Binance community, or like, I guess BSC chain. And we're all going to pretend that that's not Binance's chain. Um, and then also Tron. There's like a lot of stuff happening on Tron and BSC down there.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the pesos they have there, it's just whatever works and it's cheapest to transact with. It's sadly not
Yeah.
Ethereum sometimes. They gotta do what they gotta do. And it's at this point it's like survival for them. It's not even about like money is survival. Without it, it's hard to survive. And they need something that just works for their use case. And they're not trying to have the NFT of the future or this weird complicated algorithm of doing trades and collecting interest. They just need money to move without it losing value tomorrow.
Yeah,
And
exactly. They
it's
use
a
it because they require it.
yeah, and it's a whole different sense than what I used to. Like, that's why I love traveling. Is America's relationship with money is like it's just we're so lucky to have it. We are privileged to have the U.S. dollar as our currency, and we are privileged to have our banking systems, even though they're not perfect. Like I can send you money electronically without any fees easily, instantly. You can move it to your bank instantly. Crypto as a money sense has not hit hard for Americans because the dollar works just fine, which is
Yeah,
what's hard to convince people of in the States. Where in other countries, it's like, no, fiat does not work at all. Like, we need something better.
yeah. I really liked an Argentine told me that when he hears Americans criticize crypto, he tells them, "Yeah, you don't like it because you've never needed it." And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I like that.
It's true. And that's my biggest counterpoint with people who are trying to tell me that why do you need crypto? The dollars work fine. It's not for America. It's for the world. It's for everybody to work in a global system trustfully and like, well, I guess trustlessly, but also you can verify it and like permissionlessly use it as a global economy because that's what we do now. We're all global. Like half of America's products are made in China. Like we're servicing out digital like work to people in India or Pakistan or other countries. And it's just the America industry is very service based. Like, oh, we'll tell you how to use your finances properly or this and that, but it's super global and it's not going to be pegged to the dollar, I think at least. But
I
Who
kind of
knows?
agree with you. Like we are the US is killing its crypto industry so effectively right now. Like a lot of the effect is just coming out of scaring people. Like EthStaker wants to launch a stakewise B3 vault, but like we're talking to lawyers about like whether that's a good idea, and like we kind of have an overwhelming yes, it's fine, but there are people who are just so nervous about it because they're like, I don't know, we're in the US, like, is this going to be dangerous? And I think that ends up being a lot of the industry right now because if you do something really benign that's just like a cool tech endeavor, there's a chance that in 5 years you could get prosecuted for that cool node that you set up or the cool relay that you set up because you didn't realize what it was going to become.
That's sad. That's sad to hear, and I
It's re-
hope, yeah, I hope
it's
it
really sad.
changes.
It makes me want to emigrate, like knowing that we are falling so far behind, and that we are losing these opportunities for the generations that come after us to live in a country that is the dominant world power because that's not going to happen if we don't dive deep into crypto right now because crypto is going to, I mean,
Yeah,
I say that as somebody who's like largely biased because I work in crypto and like AI is going to be another big thing that the US is definitely leaning into, but it's not as demonized as crypto is. But I don't know, maybe it's a good thing for the US not to be losing its footing because we are a questionably moral state. And that's putting it positively.
yeah. I mean, that's the whole point. It's supposed to even the playing fields, and right now it's not even. America and other powerhouse countries are taking over, but That's why they're the most afraid of crypto is because it's evening them out, which is going lower. You know, being in this crypto world, living in it, working in it, and then I also want to know something else. Is like, what is your crypto pet peeve? Like from all the years being in it, something that really just annoys the hell out of you.
Oh, that is a good question. I had not thought of an answer for that.
There's probably
Um,
so many,
even
but try to pick one.
even though I knew this question was coming. I feel like we've already kind of covered one of my crypto pet peeves is influencers, and people sort of overestimating the influence that influencers have on the things that they're shilling, and people giving credence to their voice without necessarily like looking at who's doing the actual building and who like even knows what they're talking about. Yeah, let's go with that one.
It's a good one, and it's hard to know too because there's so many good influencers out there too. I'm not saying they're. It's hard. I don't want to generalize them all, but they're like slim pickings. It's hard to find the good ones, and also when you become any like large, when you have like a large following, you're going to have people who are opposing your views. It's natural. Not you can't get 100% approval rate. It's not just not human. And I think that's a hard thing to always remember is the more you grow and the more you try to appease the whole or the mass, it's just not going to happen. And that's when people just start sticking to their sticking to their guns and how they want to be perceived and how they want to push their agenda. But
Yeah, I thought of another pet peeve while we were
yeah,
talking.
tell me.
I'm just gonna keep coming up with things that annoy me. Um, I like probably a year and a half ago posted this post in EthStaker, asking for people who found themselves underrepresented in crypto to just reach out to me, and I got absolutely torn apart on the EthStaker subreddit. And like most of the comments were like, "This is crypto. We're just node operators. Like we're sitting behind a computer. What does it matter what color we are, or what gender we are, or like what our sexual orientation is? Like you are the one
Mm,
bringing weird leftist politics into this, even though we're all ones and zeros." And I was polite in all the comments. I listened to people, but like I just find that so annoying because I I am a tomboy. My dad raised me as kind of like a nerd. He is an IT nerd. I was out climbing rocks a lot because of the way that my dad like encouraged me to be outside, and like I was competing with my brother all the time. And I find myself far more boyish than most of my female peers. And I now work in an industry that's male dominated, and I can kind of see like everybody that's like on one side, like more feminine than I am, and like all the boys on my right. And I know that I didn't have all the same opportunities as these boys. Not necessarily that I had like fewer opportunities handed to me, but it's just that like girls aren't encouraged to go into computer science. If I had known, I didn't even know computer science. Like people ask me now, like, well, why didn't you do computer science in undergrad? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I ever considered it. I don't think like I don't even know if my school had a computer science program. And I'm sure that if they did, it would have been all boys. And I would have gotten in there and felt like the one weird girl and like felt sexualized in that. And so like it's like a really complicated process that leads women or people of color or whatever to have fewer opportunities. And because it's not someone standing at the door saying like you can't come in, these people who have always felt welcome in those communities are like confused, and they're like, what? We're not keeping anyone out. I don't know what you're talking about. And like to willfully blind yourself to that just because you're like, ugh, I don't want to deal with politics, is like, okay, well, just don't participate when somebody makes a post asking somebody to reach. Like, you didn't need to say anything. Like, you're not
That's
a part
true.
of that group. You're not affected by this. Just leave it alone.
I think that's a very powerful thing, is not having to do anything. It's what when people, again, when you're asking again, it's include as many unrepresented people or low represented people. It's if you're trying to, if you want that, you can just say nothing. Okay, it sounds like a great idea. Let it happen naturally. Or if you feel this, I forgot what the word is, but it's like you're trying so hard to prove your own point. You're kind of proving the other person's point. Like, oh no, we don't mind. We don't mind anyone coming in. Like, why would you ever think that? Well, the fact that you are defending your case so much is in itself showing that there is a problem, because people are feeling like they can't join a community of like maybe computer science people just because it is male dominated, and it is a little scary to hop in that world because of what you said. And having someone just simply suggest that maybe we can try isn't necessarily a, doesn't have to be like a bad, or I don't know, just doesn't have to be like a political thing. It just be
Yeah.
trying to
And
solve
like
or include.
you're right. It completely proves the point. Like if you really didn't care, you would just not support the initiative. You wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
jump out and attack the person.
It's again, like that's the whole point of you're trying to become someone of like influence, or just, growing in the ranks. It's not everyone's going to agree with you, and something to live with. Like, doing wholesome crypto. I'm like, shit. Like, how do I be wholesome and honest? I mean, I'm being as honest as I can, but then I guess you have to like soften some blows just because you want to be wholesome. Then I had this whole revelation in my mind. Like, no, like being wholesome is all about being very transparent, honest, and truthful without necessarily being aggressive or attacking. So it's a fun ride to live, but I'm enjoying this podcast for that reason. But that brings me to my last point: is what is your favorite wholesome crypto moment? Something in the crypto industry that made you recognize its wholesomeness.
I'm gonna go with my latest one, which was when I was at DevConnect. I I was the lead organizer of the staking gathering at DevConnect, and so like my head was all over the place, and I was like running to and fro, making sure everything was getting done. But I was really looking forward to it being done, and I had like signed up for a couple of other DevConnect events, and I was like, once the staking gathering is done, I can just enjoy myself. I can go to talks, I can learn new things, I can learn about protocol research. And then the second day of the staking gathering, Tim Bako texted me and said, "Hey, we need someone to talk about solo staking at censorship.wtf on Saturday. Can you? I know it's really last minute, but can you give a talk?" And I was like, Tim Bako just asked me to give a talk. I can't say no.
I have to do it, but damn.
But also, like, yeah. But also, I've never, like, the only other talk I've ever given was at Ethereum Argentina. And, like, I specifically chose Ethereum Argentina to give my first talk because I was like, no one knows me there. If I screw this up, I'm never going to see these people again. And if I don't screw it up, I can stay and hang out with them. And I prepared for weeks for that. Like I practically had my entire presentation memorized, whereas this one, like I had one day to practice it, and it turns out I think I might present better when I have not memorized it. So maybe less prep is the key there. But anyway, so I gave this talk. I'm like pumped after the talk because I was like, I gave it. It didn't suck. Like it all went
It went
okay.
well. I watched it. It went well. I liked it. I recommend people to watch it.
So my adrenaline was so high, and like when my adrenaline is that high, I am not like listening to people. But some guy came up to me afterwards. In the presentation, I know you saw it, but it was on like why solo stakers are important to censorship, why they're like sort of a last fallback in censorship resistance, and why they're super necessary to the chain. And afterwards, a guy came up to me and said, "Hey, I just want you to know that like I have been getting kind of bored of this solo stake. I'm a Genesis staker, and I again been getting kind of bored because I feel like maybe we were just being like really idealistic at the beginning and thinking that like, oh, it's like solo stakers who can bootstrap this network and solo stakers who can run this network. And it turns out all these big companies are coming in and taking over. And I guess they're going to be the people who run the network. And so I was thinking like, why am I even running this solo staker, this validator anymore? And so he told me that, and he said, but I just watched this talk and it gave me a lot of motivation, and I'm like super glad that you gave this talk. And he thanked me for giving it, and now I'm sitting there like, wow, that was amazing. That was like the best feedback I could have gotten from that talk. Like Tim texted me afterwards and was like, you did great. And that doesn't even compare to somebody coming up and like being the people that I was talking about, coming up and saying like, I feel like I was represented. Because that was like the best feedback that I could have gotten from that talk. And of course, like because my adrenaline is high, I was like, cool, man. I gotta go. Like I walked away. And afterwards I was like, man, I wish I had talked to that guy a little longer.
Hope he hears this now and he's like, good, she did care.
Me too. I would tell you his name, but I don't want to dox him.
Oh man, I love that. I mean, thank you for doing that, and thank you for representing the EthStaker community and giving it your all. It's definitely showing, and I'm happy to have had you on this podcast. I'm happy to have your story. I'm happy to like let people know that there is good in this world, and there is like someone really vouching for them and trying. And I hope more people can come contribute to EthStaker, and if they can be solo operators, that'd be great. If they can't, there's other methods in still keeping up that decentralization. But are there any things that you want to share that's coming up, or where people can follow you, contact you, and what they can expect?
Yeah, so EthStaker just announced today that it is launching a DVT homestaker program, and I am super excited about this. So one of the issues with DVT is that like it lowers the initial bond. Say like Diva staking lowers the initial bond to 1 ETH. So you can run a validator with 1 ETH, but like why the hell would you run a validator with 1 ETH if you're only earning rewards on that 1 ETH and you have to buy the computer in the first place, which is like $800. So with a normal 32 ETH validator, you can make up your rewards in like 4 to 5 months because you're making like $150 a month in rewards. But with 1 ETH, you're making 1/32 of that. And so EthStaker is going to run a program where we take 20 people And we teach them how to run a node. They buy their own hardware. We teach them how to run a node. We set them up on testnet, and then like run them through the basics and what the fundamentals of staking are. And then they make their mainnet deposit, and then EthStaker refunds the cost of their hardware. So after that, everything they're earning is just pure profit. And I think that this issue won't be there forever because hardware is eternally getting cheaper, and we're looking into the core devs are looking into ways to make the chain run on like more lightweight clients. It would be great if it like just ran on phones one day.
That's the goal.
But until that time, we want more node operators in more places. And like we know 32 ETH is a ridiculous barrier for people who are not in the US or Europe. So DBT could be a really great thing if they didn't have to spend the cost on that hardware. And so I'm hoping that we get a lot of applicants to that, because if we get good quality applicants who stick with the program and are able to make it all the way through the program, then we can have a second cohort of people and start churning out 20 batches of 20 node operators at a time, which would be hugely, hugely great for the decentralization of the network.
Hell yeah!
Also, we
definitely.
have a community call. We have a community call on smoothing pools tomorrow.
What's that? Tomorrow's the 13th. This episode won't be out by then, but there's weekly community calls, isn't there?
Well, there aren't weekly community calls, but we have a community call on smoothing pools that's probably already been streamed on our EthStaker YouTube channel.
So watch the recording. But again, thank you so much, Nikso, for coming on and sharing, because we need more of you, and hopefully EthStaker community keeps growing, and I'm going to do my best to put my part into it too.
Thank you so much for having me, Rudy. This was fun.